If you think you have seen every version of sacrifice in a love story, pause right here and read this till the end, because what Tian Xiwei did on that set was not acting, not coincidence, and not even bravery in the ordinary sense. It was a calculated step into danger disguised as something invisible, and by the time Zhang Linghe realized who had been standing beside him all along, everything he believed about safety, trust, and protection collapsed in one single moment. It began with rumors. A new production, a high-budget action project, a script filled with unstable sequences, unpredictable rigs, and a reputation that made even experienced crew members speak in lowered voices. Accidents had been narrowly avoided in pre-production. Equipment failures were brushed off as technical coincidence. But the atmosphere on set carried something heavier, something no one could fully name, only feel. And that was when Tian Xiwei arrived. Not as an actress, not as a guest, not as someone whose presence would draw attention. She arrived quietly, under a completely different identity. A production assistant with no public recognition, no spotlight, no reason for anyone to look twice. Dark uniform, simple badge, hair tied back in a way that erased familiarity. Even Zhang Linghe did not recognize her at first. He saw her the way everyone else did. Just another member of the crew moving between equipment checks, script folders, and set coordination tasks. But she was always near him, always positioned at angles that made no sense for someone with her supposed role. Always watching exits. Always noting timing gaps between takes. Always adjusting small things before anyone else noticed they were wrong. At first, Zhang Linghe thought she was overly efficient. Then he thought she was oddly focused. Then he stopped thinking about her at all, because the set demanded his full attention. The filming location was an abandoned industrial complex redesigned into a cinematic battlefield, complete with elevated platforms, suspended rigs, moving mechanical structures, and sequences that required precise coordination between stunts and timing cues. One mistake would not just ruin a scene, it would cause real harm. And the production team knew it. That was why tension lived in every corner of the set. Then the first incident happened. A rigging line snapped during a rehearsal run. It should have struck the marked position where Zhang Linghe was meant to stand. But someone pulled him back a fraction of a second earlier. No one saw exactly who. Only that a production assistant had been standing unusually close before it happened, and then was no longer thereafter. Zhang Linghe noticed it, but did not question it yet. People on set saved each other all the time in small ways. That was what he told himself. But the assistant with no name kept appearing at critical moments. Once, during a controlled explosion effect that misfired slightly off timing, she shouted a correction no one else heard clearly, pulling a crew member back before debris scattered into the wrong zone. Another time, she adjusted a lighting platform lock that had not been secured properly, preventing a collapse that would have taken seconds to reach impact. Each time, she vanished into the background immediately after. No recognition, no explanation, no reaction, only movement, only precision, only silence. Zhang Linghe began noticing patterns, not of coincidence, but of anticipation. It was as if someone was reading the set before it unfolded, not reacting to danger, but arriving before it formed. He tried to speak to her once after a long shoot. The crew was dispersing, the night wind sharp across the empty lot, equipment being packed away under low temporary lights. She stood near a storage crate, checking inventory sheets. He approached casually at first. "You are very new here," he said. She did not look up immediately, then answered softly. "I learn quickly." Something about her voice felt familiar. But familiarity is a dangerous illusion when hidden behind unfamiliar faces. What made him pause was not her answer. It was the way she avoided full eye contact while still tracking everything around him, as if her attention was divided between conversation and invisible threats. He asked her name. There was a brief pause too long to be natural. Then she gave one. Not her real one, but close enough to pass unnoticed. And Zhang Linghe accepted it, because on a chaotic set, trust is often borrowed rather than earned. Days passed, then weeks, and the assistant remained, always present, always alert, always one step ahead of situations that had not yet revealed themselves to anyone else. Until the night, everything changed. It was a complex action sequence involving elevated scaffolding, rotating platforms, and a timed descent that required absolute synchronization between stunt performers and mechanical systems. The rehearsal had gone smoothly earlier. Too smoothly. That was the first sign Tian Xiwei noticed. She had been reviewing structural checks silently from a distance when she saw something no one else did. A calibration misalignment in the central rig system. Small, almost invisible, but wrong. And wrong in a way that would not fail immediately. It would fail mid-sequence, when correction would be impossible. She moved faster than anyone expected from someone in her position. But she did not run. She blended, walking through crew zones, passing equipment stacks, stepping into restricted control areas without drawing attention. By the time she reached the rig control panel, the sequence was already being prepared for the next take. Zhang Linghe was on the elevated platform above, rehearsing positioning with his stunt coordinator. Below, crew members adjusted timing cues. Everything looked normal. That was the danger. Normal always hides failure best. Tian Xiwei checked the system logs quickly, confirmed the misalignment, and understood immediately that stopping the shoot outright would cause confusion, delay, and attention she could not afford. So she made a different decision. She chose control instead of alarm, and stepped into position where only a production assistant should be. Then she waited. The sequence began. Lights shifted. Markers activated. The platform moved. Zhang Linghe stepped into position above, unaware of what was about to unfold beneath him. Tian Xiwei watched every mechanical movement like reading a language only she understood. The moment came faster than expected. The rig dipped. Not enough to trigger safety override, but enough to shift trajectory. Exactly as she predicted. She moved, not towards safety, but toward correction. Grabbing a manual override lever hidden behind a support panel, she forced a stabilization reset while simultaneously signaling a cut to a secondary control operator who had not yet noticed the fault. The system hesitated, then corrected, but not fully. A secondary swing arc still drifted toward an unsafe angle. And that was when she made her most dangerous choice. She stepped into the path of it, not to stop it physically, but to redirect attention long enough for emergency braking systems to engage. A fraction of a second. That was all it took. The rig halted mid-motion. The platform stabilized. Silence fell across the set like a held breath finally released. Zhang Linghe looked down instinctively and saw her, standing where no assistant should ever stand during an active sequence. Looking up at him, completely still, completely focused. Completely revealed. Everything in that moment changed, because he finally understood. The familiarity he had been sensing. The timing of every intervention. The precision behind every silent correction. The impossible anticipation. It was not a crew member. It was her. Tian Xiwei. The realization did not arrive loudly. It arrived completely, like a truth that had been waiting for permission to exist. He descended the platform quickly once the system was secured, ignoring crew instructions, ignoring protocol, moving directly toward her. The moment they stood face to face, the world around them felt unreal. "Why are you here like this?" he asked, voice low, controlled but breaking at the edges. She did not step back. "Because someone had to be," she replied simply. He shook his head slightly, as if trying to reject the reality forming in front of him. "You could have been injured." "I calculated the risk," she answered. "That is not the point." It was the first time his voice sharpened. "Then what is?" she asked quietly. He did not respond immediately, because the answer frightened him. The point was that she had chosen invisibility over recognition, danger over safety, silence over credit. All for him. And before he could say anything else, she added something softer. "You were never meant to carry this set alone." That sentence broke the remaining distance between confusion and understanding. Around them, crew members began to notice the shift. Whispers spread. Confusion turned into recognition, and recognition turned into shock. But none of it mattered in that moment, because Zhang Linghe was no longer looking at a production assistant, and Tian Xiwei was no longer hiding. She had stepped out of disguise not by removing it, but by being seen. The set, once tense and unpredictable, now felt different. Not safer, but exposed. As if every hidden intention had finally been forced into light. Zhang Linghe lowered his voice. You should have told me. Tian Xiwei met his gaze, without hesitation. And miss the chance to prove you can still be protected without losing control of your own world. The words settled between them like something permanent. Because in that night, nothing about the production changed. Except the understanding that someone had been watching over it all along. Not for fame. Not for acknowledgement. But because some people do not wait for danger to arrive before they care enough to stop it. They step into it early, quietly, completely, and without ever asking to be seen.